All right, so I got this problem in the email right here, and I thought it was such a good problem that instead of just me whipping off a quick, email reply, I would make a video and put it on YouTube and share with everybody. It's such a good, juicy question. The question that the teacher was asking is, how do you make this visual? And this problem is actually beautiful for making a visual representation. Now it says school district ordered 247 boxes of pencils. Each box contains 100 pencils. If the pencils are to be shared evenly amongst the 10 classrooms, how many pencils will each class receive? Now, the reason why this is such a chewy problem is, first off, it's quite challenging because we need to come up with a visual. And not only do we need to come up with a visual for how to understand the problem, but we also have to come up with a visual for how to explain how to do the calculations. And on top of that, we have two questions. We have this first question, how many pencils are there altogether? And then the second question that we have is right here, how many pencils does each of the 10 classrooms get? So we've got two questions being asked, how many pencils total? How many pencils does each classroom get? And there's two things that we have to make visual. One visual to make us understand the problem, and then the second visual, how to go about getting the answer. So let's do this. Let's just get going here. So a school district ordered 247 boxes of pencils. Each box contains 100 pencils. So I'm going to draw one of those boxes of pencils, and there it is. One of the 247 boxes, it's got 100 pencils. And what are we going to do? Well, we need to draw another one. Then we need to draw another one. And boy, we're going to have to draw a lot, aren't we? And instead of trying to draw all 247 pencils, boxes, I'm just going to use a dot, 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 I guess, a few, it doesn't really matter, just to say, hey, we're still going. And there's our last two boxes of pencils with 100 pencils in each. And so I'm going to indicate that this is 247 boxes right here with kind of a little bracket thing saying, all right, there's 247 boxes. Each box has 247. Each box has 100 pencils. And so really we're saying we have 100 247 times. All right. So that's the first part, is how do we help students understand that 247 boxes, each box containing 100 pencils, means 247 times 100. Now, the second thing we need to do is help students understand, well, what kind of math are we going to do? And we don't want to just use the rule, just add 2 zeros, because we want to be more thoughtful than that. So at the beginning of the student's learning process, I think I'm probably going to use a place value chart to kind of get it going here. And there is my place value chart. And I know I need to do 247 times 100. So I'm going to put 247 right here. Now, let's make sense of this rule for how to multiply by 100 using a shortcut. And let's start by just looking at this 7. And if I take that 7 and I multiply it by 100, 7 times 100 gives me 700. So where is that going to go? That would go right here. And so basically it got moved, because I multiplied it by 100, it got moved 2 columns to the left. We could start to see a pattern already that means this 4 tens, when I multiply it by 100, it is also going to move 2 columns to the left. Oops, I don't want a 7, I want a 4. And there we go, 4. And then that 2, what's going to happen with that 2, that 200s? When we multiply by 100, it is also going to move 2 columns to the left, and that gives me 2 10,000s. And so what do we need to do over here? Because we don't have any values right there, we're going to add zeros. We're going to insert some zeros. So teachers, the thing here is when we're multiplying by 100, we don't move decimals to the right and add zeros. Really what we're doing is each of these digits being multiplied by 200 are getting moved over 2 columns to the left. So we don't move the decimal to the right. Rather, what we're really doing is moving the numbers to the left. And then we have to fill in any zeros as needed. All right, so that's the first part, is we've done this red part right here, and we now know that we have 24,700 pencils all together. Now it says we need to share those evenly amongst 10 classrooms. So how do we make that part a visual experience? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a single tape, and I know that that single tape represents 24,700 pencils. And then it says we need to divide them up amongst 10 classrooms. So what I'm going to do is, let's do green. I'm going to take this tape and I'm going to chop it into 10 equal size pieces. Each of those pieces represents a classroom. And so I want to know how many goes in each one of these boxes, because I want to know how many pencils does each of the 10 classrooms get. So there's our visual representation to show how to make sense of what's going on here. And notice this is what the representation looks like when we're multiplying, and then this is what the representation looks like when we are dividing. All right, so now I know that I need to do 24,700 divided up amongst 10 equal size groups. So basically, I need to write down we are doing 24,700 divided by 10. All right, so what am I going to do? So I am going to, once again, I'm going to make a place value chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to need 5 columns. Right? And let's model the number 24,700. All right, so what is that going to look like? That's going to be 24,700. All right, so let's use some logic here. If I take this 700 and divide by 10, 700 divided by 10 is going to give me 70. So that means that's going to give me 70, which means when I divide by 10, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here, divide by 10, that means that numerical value moves to the right 1 column because it's getting smaller. I divided it by 10. 700 divided by 10 gives me 70, which automatically means if I'm going to take my 4,000 and divide by 10, I will get a 4 in the hundreds place, 4 hundreds. And lastly, 2 10,000s divided by 10 is going to give me 2 in the thousands place. So we see we have a blank space over here. So what are we going to do? We're going to fill it in with our 0. And so now we see that each of these 10 classrooms is going to get 2,470, 2,470, etc., etc., etc. All right, so there is the kind of the way we're going to think about this. One, we're going to think about how do we visually represent the story so that the students understand it and understand what kind of operation they need to do. Then we're going to use, I like to use a place value chart to help students kind of understand what's going on when we multiply by 100. We're not just adding a couple of zeros, we're actually moving the numbers to the left. And then here is the second part. We draw a tape diagram to represent what it looks like to have 24,700 pencils being shared amongst these 10 classrooms. We notice that that means it's division. So when we're kind of equal groups, it means we're multiplying. And when we're taking something and cutting it up into equal parts, that means we're dividing. So students have to kind of know what multiplication and division mean. And then we use that place value chart again, and we use a little bit of logic. If we take that 700, divide by 10, we get 7 tens or 70, that kind of a thing, so that students start to get a sense of what's going on with the numbers, rather than just saying, well, if you divide by 10, you chop off a 0. Or if you multiply by 100, you add 2 zeros. We want to be more thoughtful than that. I hope this helps getting a sense of how to make problems like this a visual experience, both one, for understanding the story itself and what operation we might need to use, and then how to use a visual representation to understand these shortcuts and multiplying by 100 and dividing by 10.